what my experiences were and have been over the years. I've been doing audio, I've been recording and experimenting with recording since I was a teenager. And I can remember going to our local hi-fi shop and actually picking up 2 dual cassette tape decks and sort of working the two to be able to record guitar parts and some vocal parts and do multiple overdubs on cassettes. And I didn't have a lot of money, and so I started there, and boy did I get the bug. It was the thing that really set the tone, set the stage for me to move into recording and to understand audio and to get into live recording and to get into live mixing and audio. I love gear. That's the other part. I really do enjoy all types of gear. And of course, when this push moving into the box, that felt like an anti-gear type of move to me. And you live and you learn is the way I see it. And there's a lot of hype out there. There's a lot of bells and whistles, digital bells and whistles, plug-in bells and whistles that I think are just that. They're a lot of bells and whistles. Some of the stuff is really great, some of it is cool, and I'm not here to dog. All I'm here to do is to share my experience, and maybe you would have the same experience, and maybe my story will help you, and of course this encouragement to maybe set you on the path of getting better mixes. I don't know of anything else really more frustrating than potentially having a great song. You're trying to put all the parts and the pieces together, and you can't get it to sound right. And that could be for many reasons. Obviously, we have virtual instruments. We can record instruments by way of microphone. We have, ways of going directly into, let's say, interfaces and preamps and things like that to be able to get it into, let's say, your DAW, digital audio workstation. So, yeah, there's a lot of variables in trying to get it right. But what I've noticed is that it's in the process of the mix that seems to kind of bring the most turmoil in some cases. And so I just wanted to share with you, back in the day, when I'm talking back in the day, I'm saying like early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And back then, people were still looking for a great recording desk. They were looking for, if they were going to be doing recording, that's what they were looking for. And of course, not only did you have that, but then you'd have to have reel-to-reel decks, 2-inch 24-track or 2-inch 16-track, and everything was analog. And truly at that juncture, I believe within, let's say 90 to 95, was in many ways the state of the art when it came to analog recording. And I believe a lot of the videos that I'm going to be producing here in the future are going to talk more about analog recording and the value of what analog brings to the table. Part of it is because of the fact that I really feel like there is this element where everyone is just thinking, well, I can get things cheaply done in the box, and I can just buy the software. We're not even buying software anymore, you guys. We're leasing our software. We're leasing our plugins, depending on what they are. I've lost plugins over the years because of technology changes and losing the licenses and, fill in the blank. And I've lost money in the process. And so in that process, too, I want to share with you what I experienced and ways to, get around that so you're not wasting money in the long run. So getting back to the early days of mixing, some of the early desks that I had worked on were a CAD at Kanoi Audio Systems. This was a recording desk that had a really great sound to it. It was modular and big and really impressive looking, but it sounded fantastic, and I remember it sounding great. Believe it or not, the Mackie 8 bus. This was actually is considered still a legendary console. And multiple records were done, using the 8 bus. I remember that specifically. I can remember doing a session with the Harrison 32, and boy, did that thing sound sweet. And awesome sounding. I mean, it was attached to it was a 2-inch 16 track, and I had never heard bass and tight bass and just the dynamic range of a recording sounds so wonderful. It was fantastic. And doing recording workshop days back in Los Angeles, they were using some SSLs and some Scorpion desks and things like that, and all of those sounded excellent as well. And so I grew up with that. I understood that, and it's not about being nostalgic and old school. The question mark that I have for everyone is this: why are we doing music to begin with? Well, obviously something moved you emotionally, something that you either A, heard, or maybe you created, or maybe you were in a studio and you heard something that you've never heard that quality of audio before, and you realize that, this is really what I want to do. And if it moved me, I know it is going to move other people. And therefore, you get involved. And whether you're a musician, and a lot of times musicians move into becoming some type of engineer for themselves, whether it's doing their own projects or whatever the case might be, or doing projects for friends or even other professional venues potentially. And I know a lot of those are few and far between now, but not necessarily. And we're going to talk about that as well as we get into this a little bit more. So my point is that the desks back then played a big role. Now, when the digital revolution began, everybody was offloading their desks. And everyone thought that the redemption of the industry and the redemption of audio is going to be everybody just going to a digital workstation with a control surface, and that's going to be the way we do things. And that's basically what a lot of people ended up doing. Come to find out, it wasn't necessarily the best sounding in comparison to the analog recording desks. Okay, so here's what I experienced when I started moving toward the box. I was noticing that my mixes were thin. And I think you can all attest to that. You're just not getting the punch. You're just not getting the space. That was another big thing, missing the sonic space. What do I mean by that? The width of the mix, this depth element of the mix, the height of the mix. You record things into, let's say, your DAW or on a multi-track, but really when those things are being recorded, most of the time, there is no element of space within the recording. Now, sometimes when you're doing drum miking and things of that nature, you can actually get the room and put some room mics in there, and you're actually hearing space at that point. You're hearing reflective surfaces. But when you're recording directly, going in, it might be a guitar, it might be your voice, all of these things. Usually what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it as dry as possible, right? And then we add the element of space later. But even in the process of using plugins, I noticed that it's just not sitting right. And based upon what I remembered, okay? And many times when you listen to recordings that are pre-digital revolution, I don't know, I mean, this is my experience, I can hear there's a difference in the audio. And so that sonic space, and then again, the reverb, the best way I can describe it is that the reverb is sitting on the mix, not in it, okay? That's what I've noticed from plugins. And so what happens, you hear the reverb and you hear things going on, but there's just something about it. It doesn't sound, again, it's on it, not in it. It's like it's not surrounding the instrumentation. It's not, as if it were in a live space, because our ears are very in tune to reflection in any given space. And we don't sit here and calculate that stuff when we're listening. We just hear it, and we call it natural, or we call it normal. But in the simulations, right, when we're talking about reverb especially, in the simulations, it's just doesn't seem to be setting right. Now, maybe it doesn't happen for every plugin, but I'm just going to share the ones that I've used. It's there, but you're still missing the width and the depth and all of these types of things. So we all moved over to control surfaces of some kind, thinking that the digital revolution was going to be the answer. And so what we end up doing, I remember the Control 24 that was for DigiDesign, which is of course Avid now. And the Control 24, they touted it, it was supposed to have wonderful mic pre's and all this kind of stuff. And I remember working in a studio that I was a part of and never got the sound right. I mean, it was always thin. And, the control surface was supposed to give you that hands-on type of ability to manage Pro Tools. And it was still slow, It just wasn't like mixing on a desk. It wasn't like having an actual physical desk in front of you. And so theoretically, a control surface offers no sonic value. And I come back to the question, why are we doing music? Music is because there's sonic value, and that should be first and foremost in terms of what the goal is, okay? If it's going to be bells and whistles and conveniences, then why are we doing music? I guess I'm on a soapbox right now. So my point is that we got to go back, in my heart, I'm thinking, maybe through a series of videos, we can begin to discuss these things and get back to what got us excited to begin with, And it's the music, number one, it's the song, number one, and then how it's represented and how it's presented sonically, and how it'll move you and transcend you into, heck, it can remove you from your day. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're having a bad day, put a song on, it'll teleport you back in time, it'll lift you up, it'll give you the energy that you need. I mean, it's all of this stuff kind of wrapped into one. So then what I noticed was, as time began and continued moving forward, then we, again, kind of like the Control 24, where you're dealing with a type of digital mixer, okay? And digital mixers, there's a lot of them that are out there now. There's analog boards that actually have USB interface built within them. We'll discuss that in a little bit as well, and I'll give you my take on that. But here again, what I've noticed with digital mixers is that you get thin and crunchy sound. A digital mixer is only as good as the A to D conversion going on within the unit. And so if you have a digital mixer that's relatively cheap and has a lot of bells and whistles on it, there's a really good chance audio might not have been the highest priority, believe it or not. And which makes no sense to me. It's where convenience trumps the sonic quality of the audio. And it makes no sense. I mean, I do understand the convenience of having a digital mixer and scenes and all this kind of stuff. But the point is that there is something, I believe, that can be dramatically missing in the process of trying to get your mixes to sound bigger. The audio, again, is only as good as the converters. We talked about that. Certain types of these digital mixers, there is an element of latency. And an element of latency when you start stacking plugins and things like that, which can be very difficult. And especially if you're trying to record, latency is really your enemy, because timings are just not going to be locked in. So to be able to get a pocket and to be able to lay natural pocket or lay back in a track, or to do what you would normally do to make a groove happen in a song, you're sort of fighting it because of the fact that there's an element of latency going on. And so you can inch those tracks, or, move them back and forth in your DAW to be able to make them lock, but it's the process of the recording, and then it affects the performance, is the point. So latency could be an issue. Channels are not laid out for easy access. If you look behind me, the recording desk behind me, all the channels, there's 52 channels, and you have access to everything with two hands. I know Chris Lord-Alge is he's an evangelist for that. And of course, he is a fantastic mixer. He's mixed, so many great records. But his big deal is that he has an SSL, and he's out there and he's rocking that thing, and he knows it like the back of his hand, and he can grab things quickly and adjust things simultaneously, even because you have two hands, and so you can get in there and you can actually do the adjusting really quickly. Where on digital mixers, many times they're very compact, and then what you have to do is you have to scroll through menus, or you have to scroll through the channel strips to be able to locate and to do and all this kind of stuff, and you can't do everything as easy, as, in my humble opinion, okay, as you can on a recording desk. A recording desk is designed, number one, to make music, make it sound fantastic, depending, of course, on what kind you get, and then the other part of it is the ease of use, the ability to make changes quickly, efficiently, and with listening with your ears and hearing things simultaneously, and being able to get those things done. So I'm kind of following some notes here. So, all right, so behind me, basically what I ended up doing after being really fed up and frustrated with having thin mixes, and remembering what I remembered when, back in the day, and also using analog consoles and large analog desks and large format analog desks for live venues and recording. What I decided to do is say to myself, I bet you there's an issue when it comes to either the summing of the audio and getting the audio out of the interface and being able to allow for the analog sound to become electrons again and come into the desk, and to be able to hear the blending that a desk ultimately offers you, okay? There is a mojo that happens when you have an actual master section and you have all of the channels coming in, and it comes in and it's taking all those electrons and exciting them and bringing them all together, causing harmonic overtones. And these are things that don't happen with ones and zeros, guys. What has to happen is you have to synthetically try and introduce these things to make it sound proper. The other part of it is that, again, it alleviates the crunchiness, let's say, in terms of the overall sound, or maybe the thinness of the overall sound. So what ended up happening is I did some research and I was looking around, and I decided that I would rather go ahead and get an analog desk that has a master section on it and go that route rather than getting, let's say, a higher end or an expensive summing box, okay? And I just felt that would be a better way of going, because even with a summing box, you don't have the hands-on ability to be able to tweak the audio. So basically kind of going back in time in terms of concept, basically running Pro Tools as a multi-track and an editor, and essentially that's it. And then utilizing the recording desk and outboard here, just like it used to be. So this desk behind me, this is an English, it's a Midas XL200, English made in Worcestershire, England. And this is before the takeover of Midas and all this. This is back when, this was one of the number one requested rider desks for Pro Tours. The reason being is because it was both a recording and live board. It was set up like a hybrid console, And it really does a great job in terms of doing that. 52 channels gives you plenty of ins and outs and being able to navigate your sound. I was very excited about that. Again, using Pro Tools as a digital audio, using Pro Tools as a multi-track editor, okay? And basically allowing for EQing and outboard gear to be able to handle the rest of it. Also laying out the inputs and the outputs for consistency for any project, and we can discuss that a little bit later, or maybe even in another video, to make life easier when you're utilizing the recording desk. You just want everything to always be going into the same places. Chris Lord-Alge is a big proponent of that, and he says the same thing, and that's how he works, and that's how he can work so fast. The analog preamp benefits. This has 52 of the Midas wonderful preamps in it, and they sound really, really good. You move those preamps up to about 1 o'clock and they start to sing, and there's just a glorious glue thing going on with each one of those preamps. It also has 52 EQs, parametric EQs. And again, the beauty of that is the ability to be able to shape sound and do multiple shapings simultaneously, quickly, and on the fly as needed, without having to dig into a menu, without having to drag a mouse up and try to get it to work. None of that. And getting back into this reality again of mixing. The other beautiful thing about a great mixing console is it teaches you. It's showing you the path of how music works and how it gets combined. If you're not familiar with that, this is an education into itself. And the more you know and understand that, the better your mixes will become. So we have the fantastic analog preamps, right? We've got the fantastic analog EQs. We've got 8 aux sends on this particular console, which means that we can run out to outboard gear, and we can basically bring it back into channels if we want to have maximum control. The sound of that is massively different than in the box to me. The ability to go out and to run into outboard gear that's designed specifically for its purpose, and to be able to run that back in again, getting those electrons excited and hearing it that way really does, in my humble opinion, make a difference. Having a true master section where everything does finally come together for that one purpose, and it's to be mixed and to give it what? Width, depth, height, and punch, and everything that you need to be able to make it sound amazing. So a true master section. Then the quality of the sound running through the bus's outboard gear, already talked about that. Every aspect of every channel, again, accessible quickly. All of the aux sends. You have all of the maybe VCA assignments. VCA basically means, like this has VCA on it, which allows you to be able to group things together and then utilize a group of 8 faders to be able to control those while you're doing a mix down. It's pretty slick how it works. It's just cool because you can do it quickly. It's got automated muting and all of this. That's the other thing. Just something as simple as that. Being able to mute and to solo things quickly and groups of things quickly so that you can hear where a problem is fast. When you're dealing with a mouse, what I've found is that, I'm just struggling to just, navigate this mouse around, and you only have one touch point on a screen. With your hands, man, I could be going, I could be going in and clicking things in, clicking things out, soloing, moving things up, listening to the EQ, figuring out what's going on, listen to what's happening in the effects, isolate those things quickly, hear what's going on. Does it need extra EQ, less of this, more of that, all of this. So, and then we talked about the quick EQing function. So here's what I want to do, and this is a piece of information that it might be helpful. And if you're a younger person, maybe watching this video and all you know is in the box and you're clueless, I do have to say, and not that you're clueless, I was clueless. And it was like having to research this stuff and to figure out how I can remove, again, the frustration that I was having. So here is what's interesting, is that there are not a lot of analog, and I'll call it higher quality or it's high quality analog desks out there, whether for live or for recording. There's probably more recording desks being released now. I have noticed that. I know SSL has got some $30,000 desks. Trident also has come out with some that are reasonable, but these might be too expensive for your average person. And so what I'm bringing to the table is alternatives that aren't going to break the bank, that are going to get you the ability to have a summing element, actually more than a summing element, a mixing element within your studio that is going to help the size of your mix, because that's the whole point of what we're talking about here. So here's the concept: picking up an old mixer that people are offloading. And there are churches, there are touring companies. That's basically where I got this Midas from. These guys took care of the gear, and they went for convenience over, having to move a tank around. But you know what? The point is that I parked the tank in here and it's working fantastic. And it sounds absolutely fantastic. The mixes are great. One of the things that I would do would be, if you're looking for something new, and I know this is an element that seems to be, I would say a temptation maybe, and that is to be able to pick up a desk or a mixer that already has, let's say, like a USB interface in it already. And I would say don't do that. And the reason I would say don't do that is because what they're doing is they're trying to combine all these bells and whistles into one thing and get the price down. And the trouble with that is you're going to take a sonic hit. All right? You'd be better off getting a higher end ADD converter and running into that and utilizing a better analog mixer, okay? And because of the fact that there's a lot of used ones out in the market, on Reverb, on eBay, I've seen, and if you just do a little research, possibly even call the owners, you can work things out. That's basically what happened with the desk behind me. And there was a wonderful sound company. These guys were fantastic, and they're incredibly accommodating in terms of not only in the sale, but they even helped me in the shipping. Now that might not happen for everybody. That was just a huge blessing for me. But in the process of this, it really, really worked out. So in other words, separate the ADD conversion from your desk. Concentrate on the sonic quality of the desk, whatever it is, whatever you can afford. Let's talk about a couple of old ones that are basically have been forgotten about, that you can pick up for relatively cheap. Okay, let's discuss this. So, Studio Master was a recording desk that was used for live and in studio, and they weren't really huge. I mean, they were decent in size, and they sounded phenomenal. They really sounded great. You could get a lot of great sound out of those EQs. The pre's in those were really, really great. I discussed before the Mackie 8-bus console. They made a 24, they made a 32. I can remember, again, doing records on these, and the audio quality, even though they weren't like completely modular, in other words, that the channels weren't completely separate or removable, like this console behind me, everything on here is modular. You can pull everything out. In other words, you can pull one channel at a time, and you could work on that channel, pop it back in again. The I believe that the Mackie wasn't that way, but it still had a great sonic sound and it had great pre's in it, and the EQ was decent. And so in that regard, not only did you have 8 buses, but you also, would have 24 to 32 channels to be able to work with it. The meter bridge was like an extra feature. If you wanted to have a meter bridge, you'd have to pay for it. I think it was back in the day, I think it was $800 to $1,000 or something like that. You can get it for a lot cheaper. I mean, it would just probably come with one if you found one. And I did look on Reverb even today, and both of these are there. The Studio Master, there's a Studio Master there. There is the 8 bus consoles that are there, and people are offloading them. Some of them are for pickup only, but maybe you make a phone call, figure out where they're at, and say, hey, what can we do, to be able to get one. The Mackie 8 bus, I saw them for $700. The Midas consoles, like this one, is like one of their high-end ones, and and of course this was back in 1995. Of course, as this thing was probably touring around the world. The point being is that I've seen these things from some of that are decent quality, because as Midas kind of progressed, the quality took a hit, and so the older ones they seem to be the better ones. And I've seen Midas's go from about $1,000 to $8,000 depending on what you need. I think I've seen one maybe even for more than that. But Soundcraft would be another one. Both the old ones, you can get new ones actually, $3,500 for a GB4 40 channel. And Soundcraft was a great innovator of analog mixing, and a lot of their stuff had that modular element to it, at least within its design, even internally. Allen and Heath is another one where you can actually get a GL2400, a 32-channel GL2400 for about $3,200 to $3,500. And that's a 4-bus console. I think the Soundcraft might have been a 4-bus as well. But my point is that you can bring the audio in and basically do your summing and mixing directly into that desk, depending on how many outputs you have coming out of your interfaces. So we're not talking about a whole bunch of money here, guys. That's the point. There are some summing boxes that are thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and it doesn't give you even the hands-on element. Now, some of maybe the quality is better, but I'm telling you what, some of these analog mixers that I'm talking about, they're not slouches, okay? They're designed to make music. They're designed to really make things happen. And again, if you're struggling to get the width, the depth, the height, the punch, I'm letting you know that these can be options for us. The other is, of course, SSL released a desk, $30,000. That's a lot of money, I think, for the average person. But they saw the need to actually have a simplified recording desk, and so they ended up releasing something. I don't think it has automation on it or anything. There's that. API makes the box, which is another type of recording desk. I got to say, I think that one might be in the $15,000 range price, but it's still pretty expensive. But if you do get those, then you get the G-bus compression on the SSL, and of course the it's like the 2500, I guess, or something along those lines. That's in the box, API box, which is fantastic. Those are really fantastic mixers. Trident is another one. You might be able to find some of these where people, again, are just offloading and, pop them into your studio and be able to have that surface again. And I can remember when I first got back into using a Surface, when I was using, as I'm using the Midas, let's say, I can remember just that feeling of, man, it just feels really good to be at the driver's seat again, and to be able to get in there and to make it happen. Now, another critical part of this is when you're dealing with your mixer is that you got to have decent cabling. And so this is another expense, obviously. And, people are like, well, if I'm in the box, I don't have to deal with the cabling. Well, and you're probably going to be dealing with thin mixes. If you have great cabling, try to buy the best you can. You're going to hear a huge difference in what's happening sonically in your mixes, especially utilizing a recording desk or a mixing desk. My encouragement to you guys, buy the best cables you can. All right? Buy the best cables you can. All right? The other part is find the best cables for critical runs if you can't just buy a bunch of cables that are high-end cables. So what does that mean? That means, let's say, coming directly, like the main outs going into the interface, or maybe it's the tracks that would go to the interface. That type of cable, anything that maybe would be within the monitoring chain. Those, make sure that they're very high end. Maybe you have specific, maybe a high end reverb, or you're using a Bricasti, or maybe a PCM 96 or a PCM 92 or something. If you're doing something along those lines with external reverbs, you might want to use a high end cabling going to and from the buses, and so that you get the pristine sound as best you can. And the cool thing about all of that is that you can build into it. You can sort of add to the cabling. The other thing you can do is you can buy Mogami cabling in bulk, and you can create your own, whether you use switchcraft ends or pick whatever type of ends you want. If you can solder, and soldering's not that difficult, it takes a little time, but you can actually make it work. All right, let's continue on here. Buy the best cables, buy the, especially start with the main runs, the critical runs. I like using Mogami cabling. Not all Mogami is the same. I've used, it's basically 2534 quad cabling, and that seems to work really well. I've got it in bulk. I've bought it just already pre-manufactured. The stuff's not cheap, but you're getting great sound. And I had done an experiment with using less expensive cable. I could remember basically wiring up a bunch of cables, mic cables and TRS cables, tip ring sleeve, basically balanced 1/4 inch, and trying to expand areas of the studio using this cable, and it just didn't work. Or it didn't sound the same, I should say. So you lose that sonic space, you lose highs, you lose lows, within the overall sonic signature. So there's that element. So Mogami. Monster is another one. They have I know they have speaker cabling and things of that nature, and other types of cabling. I think Mogami seems to be my favorite, but you guys, maybe put it in the comments below cables that you like to use, and stuff that you really enjoy using. George L's, I know. I mean, a lot of guitar players use that in their rigs and things of that nature. So if you get the cabling right, and if you pick up a mixer, whether it be used, there used to be tons of used analog mixers that were like higher quality on the market. What I've noticed is that there's not. I mean, I went to Sweetwater and to let's see. I guess I just looked at Sweetwater. But the point is, because they usually have a lot of stuff, and what I noticed is that there's not a lot of manufacturers making these types of analog mixers, where they're slightly modular, again, like the Allen and Heath and the Soundcrafts and things like that. And those are the ones that you can get used. You can get them new as well. And I said, like I shared, the new price was those were about $3,500, which, man, if you can expand your mix and be able to do things faster, and be able to get it sounding right and get motivated behind that sound again. I come back to my initial question, or one of my initial questions: why are we doing this, right? Why are we doing audio? It's about the sound. It's about the song. It's about the sound. And what happens is that if we use, and purchase bells and whistles and trinkets to if we're using those things as motivators in terms of our purchasing and not think about what really makes the audio happen, then I think we miss the mark, And so I believe that we can all be in a better position, right? And those of you who have watched this video here now to the end, realizing that I can make a decision that is going to help in getting a better overall mix. So my hope is that this video was helpful. Maybe you can take a look at some of those mixers that we discussed, and that you can maybe pick one up, find that diamond in the rough, and get that in your home studio or your studio, wherever it is, and begin to see what analog offers. And whether you're new at this or you're old school, I think what you're going to find is a big smile on your face when you hear what comes out. So, hey, this is Pete from Wingman Studios, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And there's going to be more coming up. We're going to be doing other reviews as well. And my hope is that the reviews are very honest and getting right to information that's going to be helpful for you, okay, in the process of maybe choosing gear in the future, okay? All right, appreciate you guys. Leave your comments. Please subscribe to our channel and hit that bell so that when new things come out, you'll be able to be notified, okay? Take care.